Divine grace. Advaita Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. Sri Advaita Acharya Appearance Day ki. Nitya Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Agyantamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeyam Sri Guru Sri Utapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Shagadatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishwari Vishubhana Suti Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ajanulambita Bhujao Kanakavadhatao Sankirtanai Kapitarao Kamalaya Takshao Vishvambarao Dushavarao Yugadharma Palao Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karuna Avatarao Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodadao Gaudadao Pushpavantao Chitro Shandao Tamonadao. Hare Krishna, everybody. Today is the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya, Sri Advaita Acharya Ki. It's one of my favorite appearance days, actually, because I've always had auspicious things happen on this day. Last year, I was spontaneously asked to lead Kirtan for the morning program in Mayapur on Advaita Acharya's appearance day. It was rather ecstatic. Guru Puja, the whole parikrama around the deities. And so it's very special feeling the mercy of Advaita Acharya that day. So today we'll be reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 6.4 and Adi 6.5. There's no purports. These are just verses describing Advaita Acharya and the Mangala Charanam of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but they'll give us a basis by which we'll go off of to speak about Advaita Acharya. Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara.
Mahavishnu Jagat Karta
Mahavishnu Jagat Karta
Mayaya Srijat Yada
Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara. Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara. Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijat Yada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara. Word for word. Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu, the resting place of the efficient cause. Jagat Karta, the creator of the cosmic world. Mayaya, by the illusory energy. Yaha, who? Srijati, creates. Araha, that universe. Tasya, his. Avatar, incarnation. Eva, certainly. I am this. Advaita Acharya, Advaita Acharya. Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord, the resting place of the material cause. Translation. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Please repeat. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Text 5, and I'll read it and just read the translation. Advaitam harina tvaidad acharyam bhakti shamshanat bhakta avataram isham tam advaita charyam ashraye. Because he is non-different from Hari, he is the supreme Hari, the supreme Lord. He is called Advaita, and because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadade Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatadeshatade Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanacharya Prabhupada Vallabhaya Singhasanadharani Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtiti Patitatmanam Gyana Gurvataya Chaturnya Chakshashakna. So I want to start out by stating the obvious fact, and I was meditating on it, that to think that anybody is worthy to speak of Advaita Acharya is automatic failure, because Advaita Acharya is unlimited. And the more you go deep into the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you realize that it's as if you tried to describe Krishna completely. It's impossible. So describing Advaita Acharya is impossible. It's an impossible task, but we can do so to the best of our ability by his mercy. So I beg the mercy of all the Vaishnavas here and all the Vaishnavas everywhere and the Parampara that have the ability to say something that can inspire you and enlighten you and enliven you about Advaita Acharya, because he truly is unlimited and is one of the principal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's a great opportunity to take shelter of him and to hear about him. So I thank you very much for the opportunity. Lalita Priya gave me the opportunity. So Advaita Acharya, he is known for so many things, but most famously he's known to be the incarnation of the Lord who appeared before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhakta avatar, described that the Panchatattvas described various types of incarnations of the Lord, the Lord's person, the Lord's expansion, the Lord as a devotee is Advaita Acharya, the Lord as a jiva, the Bhakta as Srivas Thakur, and the Lord's Shakti, or the Lord's energy, as Gadadhar Pandit. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself, Bhakta Sarupakam, and then Vinichananda is the expansion of the Lord. Advaita Acharya is Bhakta avatar, the Lord as a Bhakta. Srivas is the devotee of the Lord, and Gadadhar Pandit is the Lord's energy as a devotee of the Lord. So he's famous to have called the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into the material world via his worship in the place known as Shantipur. And in that way, bringing the Lord into this world and performing pastimes with him to propagate the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the message of Krishna consciousness throughout the world, out of his great compassion. So Advaita Acharya was about 50 years of age when Lord Chaitanya appeared on the planet. So we understand that within the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya is many times in his 80s or 90s, or he may be pushing 100 at the end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Advaita Acharya was much older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I want to make some points in the beginning, and we'll spend some time on this because I think it's not talked about a lot in regards to Advaita Acharya, about the tattva and the form of Advaita Acharya, because it's a question that I've asked every single year since I've been a devotee, because we hear that Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. And so I inevitably ask the question, what does that mean? And I've gotten various answers, but the majority of the time I get a very honest, I don't know. That's beautiful. I really appreciate it. I don't know. My Guru Maharaj says that that's the best thing you can do when someone asks a question you don't know. That's really the best thing. Don't try to be a cheat. So the best answer I ever received was not in person, but while watching a lecture by His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, where he explained it. But because I'm kind of a scientific brain person, I have to want to find the sources and the whys and the hows. And so he explained that Sadashiva is different from the Shiva we think of in normal terms as Rudra. And it touches on this briefly in CC, but of course, our acharyas are so wonderful. They leave no rock unturned for us. So there's so much to say about that. There's a lot of confusion in that regard. So I'll just state the fact, and then we'll go into the reasons why. Sadashiva is not like the normal Shiva. Sadashiva is Narayan himself. So Sadashiva is Narayan and is the original source of the Shiva we know when we speak about Shiva generally in the pastimes of the Bhagavatam. So Lord Shiva and Krishna are, of course, Achincha, inconceivable, but we'll go into some sources that are going to give us some enlightenment on that matter. And the first thing I wanted to bring up was Gauranga Desha Deepika by Kavi Kanapur, which is quoted extensively by Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in regards to who the associates of Lord Chaitanya are. And so you'll hear that, especially in regards to Lord Nityananda's associates, which cowherd boy they are, which gopi Lord Chaitanya's associates are. And so much of this is coming from the Gauranga Desha Deepika. And so I wanted to start off with that. And there's just a nice statement where it is stated, just a few paragraphs here. It is concluded that Chaitanya, Advaita, and Nityananda are the supreme Lord. Chaitanya, the ocean of mercy, is known as Mahaprabhu. The other two, Nityananda and Advaita, are known as Prabhu. They are known as Goswamis and Brahmanas. Gadadhar is a Brahmana, and Srivas is called Pandita. These are the 5 distinctions within the Lord, composed of 5 tattvas. Next paragraph. The 3 forms are known as 3 Prabhus, but Lord Chaitanya is called Mahaprabhu, and the other 2 are called Prabhu, according to Sarup Damodar. Their associates were famous as great devotees. Nityananda's followers were previously cowherd boys. Those related to them were the best of the secondary cowherd boys. Those who enacted pastimes with Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip are considered to be the greatest devotees. Those who are famous in Puri are known as great devotees. Those who met Mahaprabhu during his travels in South India are regarded as great devotees, but lesser because of his association. Actually, I think I went farther than I wanted to. Actually, I started at the last part. I wanted to read, not the first part. Sorry. I will offer my respects to his dear associates, possessing hearts affectionate for their Lord, to Advaita and others who destroyed countless sins of the world. I offer my respects to Sarup Damodar and others who were filled with sweetness and who had similar prema, who were of similar great qualities and had similar mercy. So he's offering so many respects to the Panchatattva. And at a certain point, he explains that he doesn't use the word Mahavishnu. He uses exclusively that Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Sadashiva. So in regards to Sadashiva, there's so much to say. But one of the points that could be made nicely is it's described in the Sri Laghu Bhagavatamrita, which there's always some confusion as to what is, Shiva Tattva is very confusing. And so what is Sadashiva versus what is regular Shiva, what is Rudra? And so in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, there's a nice point that's made, and Gopi Parandana Prabhu gives some nice purport in regard to that. It says, among the triple avatars, this is Rupa Goswami speaking, of the Purushas, Vishnu is far greater than both Rudra and lotus-born Brahma. Bhrigu and others have ascertained this. Certainly the Purusha is even greater. Lord Vasudev is greater than the Purushas, and Lord and the Lord of Mahavaikuntha is greater still. So we'll read this purport. In the opinion of some, the three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are equal. They cite statements from the Smritis to support this opinion. For example, Eko Murtis Toyo Deva, Brahma, Vishnu, Shivatmakaha. From the original singular form of the Supreme comes the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Someone with this view will question the wisdom of considering Vishnu supreme. So they're saying, what he's saying here is that someone who views that from the original source the three gods came will question Vishnu's supremacy, which is of course not good for the conditioned soul to do. The Purva Pakshi explains that these three lords are avatars of the Garbhadakshayi Purusha, and that Vishnu is greater than Rudra and Padmava Brahma. As proof of this, he cites Bhrigu Muni's testing each of the three deities recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 89. We all know that pastime. Vishnu is superior among the three guna avatars, and certainly the Purushas, Garbhadakshayi Vishnu and Karadakshayi Vishnu, are greater than he. Since Vasudev of the Chaturvyuha is the origin of the Purushas, he is superior to them. And since the Vyuha originates from Lord Maha Vishnu of Vaikuntha, he is supreme. The Vaishnava presenting the Purva Paksha concludes Narayana of Mahavaikuntha is the Amshi from whom all forms of God originate. He is the Swayam Rupa. The next verse explains. The Shambhu, called Sadashiva, is also considered a member of Lord Narayan's entourage. He resides in the northeast. And the purport says, a group of Shaivites calling themselves the Mahashaivas refer to the Linga Purna as the authority for the conviction about Lord Sadashiva. He is described there as the source of many incarnations of Shiva and the root cause of all existence. Sadashiva Karna Karnam Param Tasmach Cha Sarve Prabhavati Devaha. Sadashiva is the supreme cause of all causes. All gods arise from him. Considering this, how can Narayan be called the Swayam Rupa? To answer this challenge, our Purva Pakshi cites the Padma Purana's unequivocal statement describing that Sadashiva as a member of Lord Narayan's is a member of Lord Narayan's entourage. The original Sadashiva mentioned in the Sri Brahma Samhita is Lord Narayan, a Balas of Krishna, whereas the Sadashiva described in the Linga Purana is a subsequent expansion and Amsha of Narayan. This second Sadashiva is the one who has a place among the avatars of Mahanarayan. So in other words, Sadashiva is actually Narayan. That's the conclusion, is that when you hear that Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva, Sadashiva is actually Vishnu Tattva. He's actually the source of whom all the other Shivas come from in the spiritual world. And because Shiva means auspicious, so that's also a name of Krishna, a name of Narayan. So that always really confused me, and it was nice to have some clarification on that.
You think the original Shiva?
The original Shiva, yes. And that is whom essentially is an expansion of Sankarshan. That's also described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as an expansion of Shankarshan, who's from the Chaturvyuha. So this is all highly theological, and in some sense many devotees aren't interested in that type of thing, but some devotees are. Because there is a hierarchy from Krishna, who's the original personality of Godhead, expands Lord Balaram, the primary expansion, and then into the into the Dwarka expansions of Krishna, which are Vasudev, Sankarshan is Balaram, Krishna's son, Pradyumna, and Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha. That's considered the original Chaturvyuha. And from Sankarshan, Lord Balaram expands the secondary Chaturvyuha, which is the Narayan forms of the Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And so from Mahasankarshan expands the Mahavishnu and also the original Sadashiva. And so that Sadashiva is always seen worshiping Sankarshan. That's also described very nicely in the Madhurya Kadambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, wherein it says, this is the name of this chapter is the position of Vishnu and Shiva. Misunderstanding the position of Vishnu and Shiva should be considered. Conscious beings are of two types, independent and dependent. The independent being is the all-pervading Lord, Ishvara, and the dependent beings are the particles of consciousness, jivas, energies of the Lord who pervade individual bodies. The independent consciousness, Ishvara, is of two types. One is not touched at all by Maya, and the other, for the Lord's pastimes, accepts the touch of Maya. The first type of Ishvara is called by such names as Narayan. This is a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam. Hari is directly the non-material Lord, devoid of the material gunas, 1088.5. The second type of Ishvara is called by such names as Shiva. Shiva Shakti Yuta Shashvat Trilingo Guna Samvrita. Shiva accepts the three gunas and is covered by them. Though Lord Shiva is covered by the gunas, one should not think that he is in the category of Jiva, as Brahma Samhita states. Kshiram yata dari vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahi tata pritagasti heto yam shambhutam apitata samupaiti karyad govindamari purusham tamam vajami. I worship the Supreme Lord Govinda, who becomes the form of Shiva, who is said to be non-different from Govinda, but who is also different because of his contact with the transformations of the Prakriti, just as milk becomes yogurt, which can be said to be non-different from its cause, but acts in a different matter. In many other scriptures also, Shiva is well known as Ishvara. So the point there is made that Shiva and Vishnu are both Ishvara, but Shiva is the Ishvara who comes in contact with the material energies, and Vishnu is the Ishvara that never comes in contact with the material energies. So in that sense, Sadashiva is of a higher choir of Shiva Tattva, or of consciousness, than the Rudras, which we experience in this world. And there's also a point in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita wherein Narada Muni is trying to seek out the greatest devotee, and he comes to the point where he's going to find Lord Shiva, and he's recommended to go to the Sadashiva, who's outside of the material universe. And so Narada Muni travels outside of the material universe to come in contact with the Sadashiva. And what is Sadashiva doing when he arrives? He's ecstatically dancing and worshiping Lord Sankarshan. So Sankarshan is the original source of Shiva, and Mahavishnu. And so therefore, Advaita Acharya is the combined incarnation of these two Vishnu Tattvas. So, yes, Prabhu.
So Shiva's not covered yet. That if you could count
Yeah.
as Shiva form.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear.
Yeah.
He's not in contact until
Exactly. Yeah, and that's actually, we can
He said that.
we can come to that right here. It says, oh, well, no, wrong bookmark. This is from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, chapter 2, text number 98. Eternal and full of happiness, that abode is absolutely real. Speaking of Shiva's abode, it can be attained by the best of Lord Shiva's servants. There, Lord Shiva, served by the most exalted regalia, reveals himself in his full splendor, surrounded by companions who share opulence and beauty equal to his. As his personal deity, he worships Lord Sankarshan, non-different from himself. What amazing wonders does Lord Shiva in this manifestation not display? And the purport is, and this is by Sanatana Goswami's purport. In his original abode, Lord Shiva displays his full opulence, including ever-existing palaces and airplanes, and his unequaled personal assets of religion, wealth, sense enjoyment, liberation, and devotion to the Supreme Lord. His emblems of rulership, such as jewelry, chamara fans, and a royal umbrella, surpasses those of Brahma and other demigods. On Shiva Loka, Lord Shiva always worships the personality of Godhead in his form as Sri Sankarshan, who has thousands of serpent hoods. Both Lord Sankarshan and his expansion, Lord Shiva, are incarnations of the Supreme Godhead, and so they are non-different. When the time comes for the material universe to be annihilated, Rudra, the destroyer, appears from Sri Sankarshan. That Rudra is the specific aspect of Lord Shiva who presides over the material mode of ignorance. Everyone who sees Lord Shiva worshiping Lord Sankarshan, one expansion of the Supreme worshiping another, becomes astonished, especially when Lord Shiva dances in ecstasy and offers wonderful prayers. Lord Shiva's worship of Sri Sankarshan can also be seen in the earthly planetary system, the Ilavarta Varsh, as Shukadeva Goswami describes in the 5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 17. So there you have it. And that's from both Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So it's always confused me. So I was interested in figuring that out, learning that. So continuing on, first, and then I have a point here that all, of course, Advaita Acharya is a chincha. And so there's many achincha things in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because there's incarnations of beings that are both Brahma and Prahlad Maharaj. It says in the Gauranga Dipika that Prahlad Maharaj, or that Haridas Thakur is Prahlad Maharaj, but we also know that he's Brahma. So these things can happen. And this is achincha, because the Lord's pastimes are achincha and the Lord's devotees are achincha. So the point that's made in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in regards to Advaita Acharya, in the chapter 6, which is the glories of Advaita Acharya, one point that is made is that all of the forms of the Lord, including Vishnu, Sadashiva, Mahavishnu, they're all worshippers of Krishna. Even Vishnu worships Krishna. Krishna is the supreme absolute Purusha, and that's the point that's being put forward, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. He's not an incarnation of Krishna. He's not actually an avatar of Krishna. He's avatari. And so all of the forms are worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya is worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nityananda Prabhu is worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhar Pandit is worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srivas Kaur is worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so in this way, the Chaitanya Charitamrita unequivocally, in Krishnadas Kaviraj's genius, in so many ways, chapter after chapter, establishes Krishna as the absolute truth. And by establishing Krishna as the absolute truth, and by establishing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of Krishna, that essentially establishes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the absolute truth, which is the goal of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, is giving us the tattva of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and these associates of him. So now we can go into various details of Advaita Acharya Prabhu's pastimes. I just wanted to get that tattva out of the way. And some devotees are not appreciative of that. Some devotees are, but I'm certainly appreciative of that. But of course, Advaita Acharya Prabhu is one of the principal associates of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. So as a principal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can understand various elements. And if you go to Mayapur and you go to Navadvip Dham, there's so much nectar there to absorb into. You get a deeper taste for these devotees and these incarnations. So Advaita Acharya Prabhu had two homes. He had one home which is famously in Shantipur, and he had another home next to Srivas Thakur that's called Advaita Bhavan, and they just renovated this Advaita Bhavan and the Srivas Angam, which are right next to each other. About a mile and a half from our temple, you'll come to the house of Srivas Thakur and Advaita Acharya. And if you go there and you chant and you do kirtan, you'll feel so much ecstasy. You can really feel while the Panchatattva is here right now. It's quite amazing. So Advaita Acharya has unlimited pastimes, but his most famous and prominent pastime is that he called the Lord down to the earth via the process of worshiping the shelagram, offering tulsi leaves and Ganga water. So at that time, a little over 500 years ago, Navadvip Dham was a great place of learning and material knowledge. It was a great place where many scholars from around the Bharat Varsh would come and they would learn and they would study. But Advaita Acharya, being the leader of the Bhaktas in Navadvip Dham, he was observing that people were not engaging in devotional service. And having understood the conclusion of all the scriptures, he was becoming very depressed, seeing that so many people, so many brahmanas were affected by Kali Yuga. They were engaging people in demigod worship. Especially, it's mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that they were worshiping Durga, which is still very prominent in Navadvip Dham. I happened to be there for Kali Puja this year, and I was struck by seeing like they would put these mandaps up, the Kali deities in there, and then the floor is some type of carpet, blue carpet, and the next day it is a red carpet. So the point is that they are killing goats, and you see people, you always see this with the Muslim community there, but even with the Hindu community there, you see them, they get their bicycles and they tie the goat to the bottom of the bicycle, and you hear this scream. The goat's like screaming, and then they're all taking to slaughter these goats and sacrifice to Kali. So very craziness. So Advaita Acharya, seeing all this, he was becoming very depressed. And so at a certain point, he became determined to bring the Lord himself to this material world. And so understanding that the Lord will answer one who worships him simply with tulsi leaves and and devotion and Ganga water, he began to worship the Shalagram Shila. And he called very intensely for the Lord to appear. And due to the Advaita Acharya's crying, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended into this world. And this is, of course, a wonderful pastime. And it should be also noted that Advaita Acharya is considered the preeminent, this is the words Vrindavan Das Thakur uses, he's the preeminent, like the preceptor of all the Vaishnavas coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, he's a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who can be said to be the supreme preceptor. Madhavendra Puri was so rasik. Advaita Acharya had went through all the scriptures and come to this conclusion that the essence of all the scriptures is Krishna. Vaidashtashaviraham Vedyo Vedanta Krid Veda Vedeva Chaham, as Bhagavad Gita concludes, that Krishna is the source of the Vedas, the knower of the Vedas, and the object of the Vedas. And so Advaita Acharya called the Lord down, and his wife Sita Thakurani, went to see the Lord at the time of his birth. And Advaita Acharya's home served as a great place for many pastimes of the Lord. And he facilitated many divine pastimes of the Lord. It's described that Advaita Acharya, he was very affectionate toward Lord Chaitanya's brother, Vishvarup. And so Vishvarup was a very, is it Vishvarup?
Yeah.
Vishvarup was a very wonderful Brahmin boy. He was always very quiet, very peaceful, very sweethearted. And he was always spending his days with Advaita Acharya. He would go to Shantipur and he would go to Srivas Thakur's house, Advaita Bhavan, and he would spend so much time there hearing from Advaita Acharya and Srivas Thakur about the Vaishnava philosophy and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he was many times glorified to Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata by Advaita Acharya that your son is so wonderful, Brahman, such a wonderful boy. And so Vishvarup was giving pleasure to the entire land of Navadvip. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was born, he was known as kind of a rascal. He was harassing the girls and harassing people and harassing Kalavecha Sridhar. He was not so sweetly mannered as Vishvarup was. So at a certain point, Vishvarup was observed by his parents, and it was seen that he is extremely renounced and he's going to leave home. And so arrangement was made to get Vishvarup married. So at that time, Vishvarup immediately left home to take sannyas. And so there's a famous, Mother Sachi made her famous offense to Advaita Acharya after that, because she was very devastated that her son had taken sannyas. So she, instead of saying Advaita Acharya, she said, he is Dvaita Acharya. Because Advaita means non-dual, non-duplicitous, and said, no, he is Dvaita Acharya, he is very dual. And so then at the point of the Mahaprakash Leela, Lord Chaitanya would not give Mother Sachi prema, and all the devotees were bewildered. And Lord Chaitanya said she said that Advaita Acharya was Dvaita, so she has to apologize. So she went and touched the feet of Advaita Acharya, and then Lord Chaitanya bestowed Krishna prema upon her. So we don't want to make any offenses against any devotees. This is a lesson there. So in the home of Advaita Acharya, many great pastimes took place. And in terms of ras, it can be noted that Advaita Acharya was always seeing the Lord as his master, but Lord Chaitanya, being the mood of a devotee and understanding that Advaita Acharya was the god brother of his guru, Ishvara Puri, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never wished to worship Advaita Acharya. Never wished to be served by Advaita Acharya. He was always wishing to worship Advaita Acharya. And so there's many pastimes in this regard. And of course, we all know his consistently. You'll start to understand some of these personalities. Advaita Acharya, such a wonderful personality, but he's always scheming to get mercy. He's doing the mudra. He's always scheming to get mercy. And so there's one beautiful pastime in the Chaitanya Bhagavat where an Advaita Acharya begins to become very upset because Lord Chaitanya will not let him serve. So Advaita Acharya begins to scheme. And it's described, he gets the idea and he secretly goes off to Shantipur, he disappears. And there he starts to preach Mayavadi philosophy. He's preaching Mayavadi philosophy. And so Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, at a certain point, they went to Shantipur. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived, Advaita Acharya began to speak this non-dual Mayavadi philosophy. And Lord Chaitanya became very furious. This is described that Lord Chaitanya grabbed Advaita Acharya and threw him to the ground and began to beat him profusely. And this is a very intense scene, and Sita Thakurani is screaming, "What are you doing? He's an old man!" And Advaita Acharya is in ecstasy, laughing, and Lord Chaitanya is just punching him in the face. And so, if we saw this, we'd be very disturbed that there's some, he was under 24 years old, beating up a man of had to be at least 65. So if you saw someone like, Gauranga praying, beating up a 65-year-old brutally, would you think, this is brutality? And so, but Advaita Acharya was in ecstasy. So in this way, Advaita Acharya was feeling that I'm finally getting chastised by my Lord. And this rasa continues on. They have this rasa. At one point, Advaita Acharya managed to take some of the water that had washed the Lord's feet. And the Lord became very disturbed by this. And he was so disturbed that he decided to kill himself. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into the Ganges, and Nityananda Prabhu had to come and retrieve him from this just disturbance that Advaita Acharya was worshiping him. And Advaita Acharya was very apologetic. So there's so many wonderful rasas in that regard between the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his great devotee Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya is also, well known as associate of the Panchatattva, and in that regard, he has wonderful pastimes with Nityananda Prabhu. And these pastimes are extremely glorious, extremely enlivening for the devotees to hear. Lord Chaitanya, upon his taking sannyas, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, of course, a great devotee of the Lord, and he was engaging in, the Kirtan movement, Sankirtan movement, converting many people to Vaishnavism. But at a certain point, he began to chastise severely some of his Brahmin students. Actually, at one point, when Brahmana asked a question that was against the Vaishnava philosophy, and so Lord Chaitanya began to chase him with a stick. And the Brahmanas became puffed up, thinking, we are also Brahmanas, who is he to hit us? And so Lord Chaitanya, seeing that they were not respecting the Lord, knowing I'm the Lord, and they're not respecting me, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided that, even the fallen souls respect the sannyas order in Navadvip. So Lord Chaitanya came to the conclusion that he would take sannyas, which is a whole pastime in itself. He crossed the river, the Ganges River, over the Navadvip side. You've been to Mayapur. And Lord Chaitanya, took sannyas from Keshava Bharati, and it's described that the haircutting ceremony took a whole week because all the devotees were crying too much as they were shaving his head. And so Lord Chaitanya, after he took sannyas, he was convinced he wanted to go to Vrindavan Dham. And so the devotees were very sad, especially Nityananda Prabhu was very upset. What to speak of Mother Sachi, but Nityananda Prabhu was very upset that the Lord had taken sannyas because he feels the Lord is above sannyas. So Nityananda Prabhu, not wanting the Lord to go to Vrindavan, told the Lord that we will go to Vrindavan. And so the Lord was wandering around the forests near Navadvip, away from the Ganges actually, and he was thinking, I'm in Vrindavan, and Lord Nityananda Prabhu said, come, we'll go to Vrindavan. This is the Yamuna River. And so they get in this boat and they begin going up the river. And at a certain point, once they land, Advaita Acharya Prabhu comes on a boat. And then Lord Chaitanya goes, you tricked me. It's very, very funny, the rasa. I did not trick you. And Lord Nityananda says the words, I didn't trick you. And so Lord Chaitanya's, I'm not in Vrindavan, but he was thinking I'm in Vrindavan this whole time. And he was thinking, you tricked me. And so this was at Shantipur. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got off the boat into Shantipur, and they went to Advaita Acharya's house. And there they had gathered for one last kind of meeting, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and especially Mother Sachi. So Mother Sachi was very distraught, and so this was her opportunity to cook for her son one last time. And so it's described they had a massive kirtan mela, very big kirtan mela. And many other devotees wanted to cook for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Advaita Acharya and the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were saying, no, this is Sachi's opportunity to cook for her son. And so there's one beautiful exchange there between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Mother Sachi, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I belong to you. You own me, my dear mother. And if you say, take this saffron cloth off, then I will. But Sachi, knowing the implications of that and the disgrace of that, said no. But she did make one request. She requested that the Lord, instead of going to Vrindavan, he make his headquarters Jagannath Puri. And so Sachi Mata would cook, and they would do kirtan, and she would cook, and then it's described that all the devotees, in classic Vaishnava fashion, the devotees would line up and they would take prasad together and they would chant names of Krishna and they would be playful. The devotees should understand, sometimes devotees can be very playful. And actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates were all very playful. And so at a certain point, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu, they would engage in mock fighting. So much of the time they would have these mock fights. And it would be described that, Advaita Acharya would be saying, who is this man sitting next to me? I shouldn't eat with him. I don't know what caste he is. Is he a sannyasi? Is he not? I don't know if he's a Brahmin. Is he a Muslim? I don't know what this man is. I can't tell. I don't know where he was born. I don't know who his parents are. And he's very strange. So in this way, he would criticize Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu would say, who is this Mayavadi, this false Brahmana, this Smriti, this Smarta Brahman here? Why is he even taking prasad with us? This is a Smarta Brahman. And they would criticize each other. And it was, Nityananda Prabhu would become very angry sometimes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was thinking, you're feeding me so much nice food. Lord Chaitanya didn't want to eat. This is a kind of continuous leela in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya would want to be very renounced and eat, simple vegetables as a sannyasi. And the devotees would want to serve Lord Chaitanya all these wonderful preparations. And so Lord Chaitanya would say, just this, thank you. And they'd put that next to Chaitanya's here, Nityananda's here, and Advaita's here. And then they'd put they'd put a massive mound of rice on Nityananda Prabhu's plate. Nityananda Prabhu would think, I haven't eaten in 3 days, and you only give me this much rice? So Nityananda Prabhu would become very angry, and he began to throw the rice. And as he was arguing with Advaita Acharya at one point, he began to throw rice at Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya, when the rice hit him, he said, I've been touched by the Mahaprasadam of Nityananda Prabhu, and he would start dancing. And so you see how Advaita Acharya is always plotting to get mercy. So these pastimes are very, very wonderful. And as I said, we can only take a small drop of that nectar in the time we have. If you want to experience that nectar, I encourage everybody to read Chaitanya Charitamrita 100 times and read Chaitanya Bhagavat as recommended by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta 100 times. Because it never gets old. You hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, they do something to your heart, especially the CC. It's just so wonderful. It's the greatest book. The CC it's so wonderful. It's just like, you read it, you become, I feel so blissful this morning. And I'm thinking, this is just because I read a little CC this morning. It's just, you get this ecstasy. You just can't imagine it. It's so wonderful. So, in regards to Advaita Acharya, another significant contribution of Advaita Acharya, besides the contribution of bringing Lord Chaitanya to the material world, which is pretty good. Advaita Acharya was embodying the philosophy of Vaishnavism, even at that time, perfectly. And so we see that in his relationship with Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was actually the oldest associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Haridas Thakur was, of course, raised in a Muslim family, but it's described when Advaita Acharya was offering his offerings to the Pinda, to the ancestors. The most elevated Brahmana is supposed to get the prasadam from that offering, part of the process, that sacrifice, that yajna. And so he was going to offer it to the most elevated Brahmana, but instead of calling the many Brahmins who were there, he called Haridas Thakur, who, of course, by birth was not a Brahmin. In fact, was born in an Islamic family, but by calling Haridas Thakur, he was showing that the Vaishnava, he who is chanting the holy name of the Lord, is beyond any Brahmana, and that's, of course, confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yanamadeya Shravana Nukirtanad Yat Pravanad Yat Smaranad Api Kvachit Sadyopi sadya savadaya kalpate kutus punaste bhagavan nudarshanat. It's described by Devahuti that what to speak of one who sees your form, even one who hears about you, remembers you, or chants your name but one time, is eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. So, in this way, Haridas Thakur was seen as the Namacharya, recognized as the Namacharya. There's another verse right after that where it describes that whether one who's chanting the holy name of the Lord, he has gone through all the processes of purification, bathing. He has all the good qualities of the Aryans. All of the sacred rites and rituals have been done. Is it? Can't remember the Sanskrit right now. So there's so many wonderful pastimes, and I'll just share in with the last, point here is that Advaita Acharya, the conclusive point that we get from the CC in regards to the glories of Advaita Acharya chapter is that even though Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu Sadashiva, he's a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so the whole point of this kind of Adi Leela is establishing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not even an incarnation of the Lord, which we say incarnation, but he's not actually. He is the avatari, he's Krishna himself. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the unequivocal absolute truth. And like we were speaking to those boys 2 weeks ago, it's just mind-blowing when you think God himself appeared on this planet 500 years ago. God himself, not even an incarnation of God. God himself, Krishna himself was here. And like Parameshwar Prabhu said, he said, and you're watching football? So, yeah. Krishna himself appeared. And, the beauty of it is that Krishnadas Kaviraj with Shastra completely establishes this fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God. What empowerment Krishnadas Kaviraj had to establish unequivocally that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God. If you logically reason and you read the CC, you'll have to come to the conclusion that Lord Chaitanya is God. You cannot not come to that conclusion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was such an intellectual great. He was actually leaning toward Christianity in his youth because of seeing the way that Hinduism was. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur came across Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Krishnadas Kaviraj first off establishes that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead beyond Vishnu via the process of Shastra, understanding Shastra, and then establishes that Lord Chaitanya is non-different from Krishna. And so in that way, Lord Chaitanya is the supreme absolute truth. And so Advaita Acharya, of course, worships Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that way. And that supreme absolute truth, the beauty of it is that Namo Mahavandanyaya Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gortu Vishay Namaha. And Lord Chaitanya is unlimitedly merciful. He's the supreme manifestation of Krishna's mercy. And Krishna is the most merciful person in all creation. And out of all of Krishna's energies, the personified Vedas explain that the mercy is the most amazing element. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the concentrated form of that mercy of the Lord, coming to deliver the fallen conditioned souls. And Advaita Acharya wanted to deliver that mercy to the whole world. And so he worshipped with tears and with devotion in his eyes. He worshipped the Shalagram Shila, which is still there in Shantipur, with Tulsi leaves and Ganga water, and thus summoned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into this world. Now, our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he many times visited Shantipur. And there's one very famous story, which you've all probably heard, but it's worth telling unlimited times, that Prabhupada would visit this temple in Shantipur as a grihasta. And the Sevite there, the old man who was serving the deities there at that temple, he would observe one very nice Abhay Babu coming and, chanting japa with his family and taking prasad very regularly. He would come there. Of course, it's not too far from Kolkata to Mayapur. I'm sure it was probably less than it is now, because now the traffic is India traffic. But they would come and they would visit. Prabhupada's family would come, and Prabhupada would come and visit and pray there. And of course, Shantipur is a little closer than Mayapur is, by an hour or so, 45 minutes. He would come and he would pray there. And this was a regular occurrence. And then at a certain point, the Maharaj there noticed that Abhay Babu was no longer coming. He was no longer coming to pray to Advaita Acharya. And so in 1965, shortly before Prabhupada began his quest and got on the Jaladuta, Prabhupada visited that temple. And the Sevite was there observing, and he saw this old sannyasi, devotee, in the back of the temple, chanting japa very profusely and weeping and weeping and weeping and weeping. And he was just weeping so deeply. And at a certain point, the Maharaj noticed, wait, this is Abhay Babu. This is the same Abhay who used to visit with his family. Now he's taken sannyas. And now he's demonstrating this prema. And so this Sevite approached Abhay, or now Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he said, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Why are you weeping? Prabhupada replied, my spiritual master has given me an impossible order. My spiritual master has given me an impossible order. My spiritual master has given me an impossible order. And I'm simply begging the personalities here in Advaita Acharya that I can fulfill this order. And so just as Advaita Acharya begged Lord Chaitanya to come and be compassionate to the world, Prabhupada was begging Advaita Acharya to give him the ability to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all around the world. And we can also, and we should also, beg Advaita Acharya on this day that we can spread the Sankirtan movement. There's no life. If we don't think every day, how am I going to spread Krishna consciousness? There's no life to your bhakti. You're dead. Sorry to say that. It just, at least for me, if I'm not preaching, I become just dead inside. During the summertime, when there's no book distribution, there's like no one coming to the temple, everyone knows I get depressed during July. Just like, I don't know if I can stay here. Because the preaching is what gives us life. And so Prabhupada was begging. And then later on, of course, famously, the devotees now established ISKCON. We're in Mayapur, and of course, if you're in Mayapur, you're going to want to go visit Shantipur. And so they came there, and then this Maharaj saw, it was a Back to Godhead magazine, and he saw, well, Prabhupada, he did it. He spread it all over the world, and he was so joyful upon that. And so these personalities are real. Advaita Acharya is a real person. Rupa and Sanatan are real people. And, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body never, went it back to Krishna. It was a transcendental body. Never was put into samadhi or anything. But there was one rascal personality who we know, who we preached to for many years. But we had one devotee staying up there with them. They were a Mayavadi group, but he was staying there, and he was always talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preaching. And then this Mayavadi leader, he actually said, oh, well, maybe Chaitanya Prabhu is not real, meaning he's a demon, right? He's a demon. He may be a very nice looking demon, but he was a demon. But it's such a preposterous statement, because he was just disagreeing with the philosophy, saying he's trying to deny Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's existence. When you can go to the grave of Rupa and Sanatan, and you can go to all these associates, you can go to their samadhis, and you can be with them. So when I was at Sanatan Goswami's samadhi a few times ago, when I was in Vrindavan, I just was reading the pastime of Sanatan Goswami being hugged by the Lord, and I just began to weep, thinking, this person here was hugged by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is all real. And so Advaita Acharya is a real person, and we can pray to him on this day, and we should pray to him. Please, no matter what happens to me, no matter where I'm at, no matter what external changes, just never, ever let me stop serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Last minute. Yes.
So when you are
saying, all this technical information about the hierarchy and the tattva, I have such a hard time, keeping everything straight. And so sometimes I start to panic and think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to, keep all this straight and understand this. And so I guess my question is like, how for someone like me that it would maybe take me a whole new brain to be able to do that. Like, how necessary is it for me to like put effort towards understanding like those kind of technical things?
Well, simple for the simple and complex for the complex.
Are you calling me simple?
Prabhupada said,
No, I'm just kidding.
no, I'm not calling you simple, but I'm saying that, because Prabhupada was so, in regards to the CC, Prabhupada, he gives there's so many purports where it's just like, go down this road, turn right here, walk 10 meters, and you'll come to this location. And it seems like, this is a little redundant, isn't it? But Prabhupada said, no, this is scientific. This is showing that we know what we're talking about. And so when we hear a statement like Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva, we have to be able to answer that as preachers and as teachers. And so it's not necessary for us to go back to Godhead. Of course, it's helpful. Janma karma chme divyam evam yo vedi tattva deham punar janma neti mameti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance does not take birth in this world, O son of Kundi, but attains to my supreme abode. So it's helpful, but it's not necessary. It's not that's essential information. What's essential information is Trinata Pisa Nichena, Tare Vasishnana, Manina Madana, Kirtaniya Siddhahadi, Chen, the holy name. Prabhupada said many times, we have philosophy, but if you can't do the philosophy, just chant Hare Krishna, serve Krishna, and the purport to Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Prabhupada says, one may have a spiritual master, one may be part of a spiritual organization, but if one is not intelligent enough to, take advantage of these things, not that you're not intelligent, but Krishna gives them the help from within the heart. Mm-hmm. And so what is important is that we have people who do know these things so that these answers can be brought out and we can show that we know. We're not just like, certain other religious groups who sentimentally attach themselves onto scripture without understanding the essence of it, without understanding the history of it, the language of it, so many things.
Yeah.
And so when you ask a question you ask like, where does God live? Or you say something to some of these Christian pastors, not to beat them up, but you get 10 different answers. What if you've never heard of Jesus? Well, some people say, well, they go to hell. Well, no, then God's going to give them from their heart. God.
Right.
There's so many crazy, they make it up. And so we don't ever want to be that way. We want to have an answer for everything. And there is an answer for everything in the Shastra. That's what's beautiful about it. That's why we need personalities who are willing to learn these things and speak of them.
It sort of reminds me of like when I was studying the Bible and all the genealogies. Like, I'm not going to say I read those. I kind of just skimmed through them and
yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Okay. Shri Advaita Acharya Prabhu ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki.